Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half Norwegian on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a couple of times before. They're still relative newcomers actually, but I have been impressed with the quality of beers that I've had from both of these breweries. So I'm quite curious to see what happens when they put their heads together. I've also heard that this beer is very good, so we'll just need to see how we get on. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. And definitely nice to feature some Norwegian stuff on the channel. We don't do that often enough, but it's actually quite difficult to get a hold of Norwegian craft beer here in Sweden, unfortunately. So hopefully that's something that changes over the next little while. But anyway, for the home side of things then, we are going to head up to Jämtland County, which is to the northwest of Stockholm. We are going to go to Ore, which is a very well-known ski resort town, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri, or the Black Mountain Brewery, if we can call it that. But this particular beer is called the Hoppy Macaque. It comes in at 8.5% ABV. It's a double IPA, and this is brewed in collaboration with Monkey Brew, who are from Trondheim over in Norway. And Trondheim actually is just kind of along the road from Ore if you look at the maps. But yeah, we've had some really nice IPAs from both of these guys in the past actually, so it'll be interesting to see what this collaboration one is like. But this beer was released as part of the local småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2022, and it's the first collaboration that I've had between these two breweries actually. But going by the fact they've called it the 2021 edition, I'm guessing that they might get together and do another one of these next year. We'll just need to see, because I think it's maybe only an hour or two down the road actually to Trondheim from Ore. So we'll just need to see. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri and from Monkey Brew, and we will see about adding more to both of those lists in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that happens to take your fancy. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for both the Norwegian beers that I've reviewed for you and one for the Swedish beers. The Swedish one's being added to very regularly, the Norwegian one when I can, hopefully more frequently in the near future. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. But anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about the breweries then, and we'll start off with Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri, since they are the home brewery in this case. So Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Ore in Jämtland County, and the company was founded back in 2017. So the brewery was originally based in the basement of the Ore Ski Inn restaurant, and the main man behind the brewing is Philip Hafstad, who had been a home brewer for about 6 years previously, and he joined the company after a period of working in Asia. So the restaurant is a family business, and it was founded originally back in 1980 when Arne Hafstad built the restaurant on the hill. But at the restaurant they have 10 beer taps, and originally they had to transport the beer up the hill by bike every week. But owing to the success of the beer, a bit later on in 2019, they decided they were going to invest more in the brewery side of the business. So they opened up a second and larger production facility in Durid, which is equipped with a 2,000 litre brewing system, and they've also hired Sebastian Torneus as the brewer there. But they've gradually expanded their output, and over the course of 2020, they produced around 100,000 litres, and they estimate that in this facility they can expand it up to produce around 350,000 litres of beer per year. But as of February 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 55 different kinds of beer. They are pretty prolific these days, so I could see that number rising quite a lot over the next little while, but they have made a bit of a name for themselves when it comes to New England hazy IPAs. And if I'm remembering correctly, I believe that Philip Hafstad is the cousin of Niels Hultkrantz, who is one of the main men behind it, Svartbergets Brewery actually. So yeah, I guess he's maybe been getting a little bit of advice on his brewing and things like that from his cousin. So that's pretty cool, actually. It was actually Ole Anderson from OO Brewing who told me that there was some kind of relation in there. So yeah, pretty cool to learn that, actually, and it just goes to show you how interconnected the whole brewing world actually can be in Sweden and things like that. So yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri, other than that you need to try some of their beers because they're pretty damn nice. But if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and go on to the Norwegian side of things with Monkey Brew. So Monkey Brew, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in Trondheim, and the company was founded back in 2014. So the three men behind the company are Bjarke Vang, Paul Rolfsen and Jörg Solheim. These three guys were home brewers, and they brewed together in an attic apartment for about 4 years and went on to win several awards at the National Home Brewing Championship in Oslo, I think the first of them coming back in 2013. But when they won this competition, it gave them the chance to brew their Doppelbock at Nygneø in Grimstad, and this proved to be the spark that made them go professional. So the following year, in 2014, they opened the Habitat in the centre of Trondheim, which very quickly built a reputation amongst the locals for its beer and pizza, and they initially brewed their beers in the basement there, but they later moved to a new facility at Nyhavna in the northeast of the city. But over the years, they've expanded the brewery with new equipment, and they've also started barrel aging at some beers as well. I don't think we've seen any of their barrel aged stuff come over to Sweden yet, but fingers crossed, that's not too far away. But as of February 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 168 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And as I say, they're quite well known for their New England IPAs, but there are a few other styles in there as well. But yeah, I first reviewed a beer from these guys a couple of months back. It might well even be up to a year. But we have reviewed 2 or maybe 3 beers from a Monkey Brew in the past, but they're pretty damn solid, actually, and it's definitely cool to see that more and more Norwegian breweries are starting to get out there, of course. So hopefully we get even more of the Norwegian breweries coming over to Sweden in the next little while. It's kind of sad that it's quite difficult to get so much of the Norwegian stuff over here. But yeah, anyway, that's all I can tell you about Monkey Brew for the moment. Again, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and actually have a look at the beer itself. So there wasn't any data about the hops or anything like that have been used in this one, unfortunately, but yeah, we'll just need to have a little look at the can instead. So as you can see at the top here, this is the Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri symbol, which is quite nice. Underneath that you've got the Monkey Brew sort of thing. There you can see the Hoppy Macaque. The Macaque, of course, is a type of monkey that is, you get them down in Gibraltar, if I remember right, the macaques. But yeah, they were little shits. They used to kind of attack people and stuff like that in Gibraltar, from what I remember. But yeah, lovely black can on this one. You can see it's got a black top on it. 440 millilitres, 8.5% double IPA. Going by the ingredients list, it says it contains barley malt and wheat malt. So kind of, I guess we can kind of consider it a New England, but we'll just need to see. It might well be a little bit more akin to what you would term an American IPA, which tends to be a little bit in the middle of a West Coaster and a New England, actually. We'll need to see. We'll talk about that when we have a taste of it. But as we say, 440 milliliter can. I think this one was a little bit more expensive. I think this might have been about 65 Swedish kroner, which is about €6.50. Yeah, about €6.50, somewhere in the region of like £5.50, something like that. And I guess that's probably about, $7.50 American, maybe $8, something like that. But yeah, when it comes to Nordic beer, you're going to pay a little bit more just because of the strength of the currencies and the cost of labour and so on. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious. Yeah, there we go. Let's get this guy out and into the glass. But yeah, this beer seemed to have good ratings. I think it was a 3.9 that it had on Untappd when I had a little look earlier to see if I could find out what hops were in it. But yeah, considering the reputation that both of these breweries have for their New England IPAs, I'm not really surprised at that. And I'll tell you something, I can smell it. I'm sitting maybe half a metre away from it and I can smell it already without having really leaned forward. But anyway, let's have a little look at this beer and see what we've got. So, before the head on this one disappears, I think it's safe to say that this beer poured with somewhere between a half and a 2/3 finger of a frothy, kind of creamy coloured head. I wouldn't describe it as perfect white, but you can see there's a mixture of kind of slightly medium-sized bubbles in the bottom there, and you know, smaller bubbles toward the top. The colour of this beer, is definitely a very kind of bright yellow. So I would compare it. Actually, no, it's a little bit leaning towards the kind of darker side of yellow. It's just got a very, very light amber to it. So I would describe the colour of this one as being akin to more of a a sort of mixed tropical fruit juice, this one. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts that you put in can affect the colour of a beer as well. But in IPAs, we don't often have to care about that. It's mainly the colour, the types of malts. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I don't know how well you can see it, but there is quite a little bit of particle just floating around in this one. So I'm not sure how long this beer has been in the can. We'll just need to see, but let me just bring that up for you there. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up, but there are quite a few little bits of particle just floating around in this one. Maybe the fridge has been a little bit cold, or it has been sitting for a little bit longer, but it's definitely in suspension in quite big clumps rather than being sort of foggy as it would otherwise be. So yeah, I remember that from colloid chemistry at university and things like that. That was always quite interesting, colloid suspensions and stuff. It looks pretty cool. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one. But in terms of its appearance, it actually does look like one of these American IPAs. It's not the haziest of things that you're going to get, which you would get from the New England, and it's not the clearest or kind of just, that naturally hazy sort of thing that you get from the West Coasters. It's somewhere in the middle of that. But yeah, remember, level of haze in a beer usually depends on the oak content, the wheat content, and to a degree the yeast as well. But yeah, as I say, we're not really sure how much of a New England this one is, or exactly what kind of IPA it is. I'm guessing that this one's going to be what we could call an American IPA. But yeah, in terms of its appearance, nothing too surprising about it. I think we can have a look at the aroma and see how we get on. You can see the head has just faded away to be quite a nice thin foamy layer. But let's look at the aroma and see how we get on with this. That does smell pretty nice. I'm going to say straight away, I don't think this beer is at its freshest. I'll say that. There's just something about the wheat in this. You can smell that the wheat is a little bit kind of thicker in that. But that's, the beer does still smell pretty damn good, actually. First impression of it is that it's got quite a thick and slightly boozy malt base to it, but at 8.5%, you should expect that, to be honest. So yeah, it does have quite a nice kind of bigger base to it, if that makes sense. The fruits are actually quite pungent in this one. It's got a good balance between the more pungent tropical notes and a bit of a softer, kind of more citrusy side of things too. The green component's actually quite floral as well. So that's a basic first impression of the aroma, but let's try and break that down for you and detail it a little bit more. Aroma wise then, backbone of the beer, there's a little bit of a kind of soft, fresh, white bready bread crust in there, and that goes together really, really nicely. On top of that, you can smell quite thick, but still quite fresh and quite almost doughy smelling white bread, which is kind of interesting. It's almost like, if you get a fresh hedgehog roll, you've cut it up, it's still got a wee bit of the kind of baking flour and all that kind of stuff on it. That's what the backbone of this beer smells like. There is a bit of a sweet component to this one, actually. I do get a little bit of I do actually get a wee bit of a straight up caramel to this, and a bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. I don't get so much in the way of a Werther's Original. There is a little touch of it there, but really not a lot, I have to say. Yeah. Aroma-wise, though, the malty side of things is quite nice. It's really quite a bready leaning IPA, this one, but going by the way the malt base is, I really think it is what we can call an American IPA. It's got a little bit of the kind of biscuity and caramelly character we'd expect of a West Coaster, but the kind of thicker breadiness that's coming out of this is a wee bit more akin to a New England in a way. Yeah, this is quite interesting, actually. I'd be interested to know what type of IPA they said this one is, because it is just listed as a double IPA. Yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, malty side of things is quite nice, I have to say. Quite impressed with that. But the hoppy side of this beer is also pretty damn nice smelling too. So let's take a wee quick look at that. On the green component side of things then, there is a wee touch of earthiness in there. There's quite a nice, bright, floral aromaticity to it as well. Yeah, and you've also got a little touch of a kind of grassy. You do also have a little touch of a kind of grassy note to this one actually, which I quite like. So yeah, I mean the green component overall for me, it has got a good little bit of that kind of grassy, zesty vibe to it. But yeah, you've got a bit of that deeper kind of floral, aromatic quality to it. It feels quite balanced between the two, to be honest with you. You can't really say that one's dominant over the other. But yeah, green component wise, this one is quite nice. Let's focus on the fruity side of things, because I think this is where a lot of the complexity is. So for me, this is interesting, because I do actually get quite a little bit of passion fruit out of it. It does have a wee bit of a juicy mango, but underneath that you can smell some slightly drier tropical fruits, like, you know, apricots, a wee bit of pineapple. You've got this kind of thing going on. But yeah, you know, aroma wise, it's pretty nice. Yeah. The fruity, yeah, the tropical side of this one is really nice. I get a lot of lime out of this. I actually do get quite a lot of a kind of lemony, limey character out of this. I'd be very curious to know what hops are in this. I mean, could it be a little bit of like Galaxy, maybe a wee bit of Idaho 7, something like that? And then like Motueka, maybe? I'd be very curious about that. It has got quite a nice kind of limey note, but I'm getting a wee bit of orange as well, which is kind of interesting. And you know, Motueka can give you that sort of a mix of a kind of limey orangey character in my experience. So yeah, I've got a feeling it could be something a bit like, you know, a little bit of Galaxy, a little bit of Idaho 7, and maybe a wee bit of like Motueka or something like that. Yeah, interesting. I could be completely wrong. There's so many hops out there these days. It's very difficult to know what's going on in some of these beers. But yeah, whatever it is that's going on, this is quite nice. But yeah, for me on the citrusy side of things, it's got a wee bit of a limey character to it, but also a wee bit of a more oily orange note to it as well. But yeah, it is a nice smelling beer, this one, so it gets a thumbs up from me. So let's get this guy, the rest of this guy, out into the glass and see how we go. So yes, this one is the Hoppy Macaque 8.5% double IPA from Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri in Åre, Jämtland here in Sweden, in collaboration with Monkey Brew from Trondheim in Norway, just kind of down the road, if you like. Let's get stuck in. Slange Skål. Yeah, this is one of these. I'm going to say straight away, this is one of these ones that you could term an American IPA. It's got a little bit of New England, and it's also got a wee bit of West Coast in it. I think that's quite nice. I do actually quite enjoy these ones that show you a little bit of both sides of the style, if you like. So yeah, and I'm going to say straight away, it's a good quality beer. The worries that I had about it being a little bit not fresh, it feels okay. I think it is maybe about, I think it might well be about, you know, a month or so at least in the can. Is there a canned on date? Let's just have a little look at this just to confirm. But that doesn't take away anything from the drinkability of this beer. No, it's not a canned on date. Oh, yeah. I don't know. It says 8th of the 12th, 22. So I'm guessing it might have been canned on the 8th of December or something like that. I don't know. Seems a little bit late to put that out then in the February thing, if that's the case, but not 100% sure. Although in fairness, you do need to let the beer kind of chill a little bit in the can to mature, if you like, before you put it out there. But yeah, that would be my guess, is that it's been canned in December. So maybe this one is actually about, you know, 2 and a bit months old, something like that. But it's still holding up fairly well, so credit for that. I'm drinking this one toward the end of February, of course, because we just had so many other things to get through But yeah, it is a nice IPA, this one. So thumbs up to Monkey Brew and Svartbergets. Now, let's break it down then. Yeah, it drinks nicely for an 8.5% or 2, I have to say. But it's a nice big oily IPA, this one. So yeah, break the flavour down. Middle third of the palate. The backbone of this beer is definitely a little bit of that kind of slightly dry kind of white bready bread crust there. You can feel that. It feels, you know, like that fresh hedgehog kind of roll thing that I was talking about earlier on. So yeah, definitely getting some of those vibes out of this beer. And it works. Sitting on top of that, you can feel the kind of lighter, fluffier white bread from the barley malt, and then the wheat on top of that is just kind of thickening it out. So you've got a kind of bread crust, a kind of thinner, fluffier white bread, and then a slightly thicker one, I think, sitting on top of that. So this beer really does have quite a nice bready backbone to it in that way. But sitting on top of that, you've got some of the sweeter sides of things coming out of the barley malt. So this is what I was saying. It has a wee bit of a New England backbone, but it's got a bit of a kind of West Coast type finish, I guess we can say. So, on top of that kind of more dense, thicker white bready layer, you can feel the sweetness coming out of the beer. So you've got like a little circle there in the middle of your palate, and you can feel there's a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive, biscuity sort of layer to it, and that I think works quite nicely. So yeah, that nice little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuity layer that forms the base, and the biscuitiness comes out a little bit more prominently towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate. But sitting in the dead centre, sitting in the dead centre of the middle of your palate, you can feel a wee bit of a more kind of concentrated caramel. So the brown sugars that you get in this one are a little bit more like the kind of West Coasty side of the IPA spectrum, if you like. And that works for it. That really does work for it, this one. The more that you go into the aftertaste, it actually starts to lean a little bit more towards the West Coast side of things. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together. So a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, it does get sweeter and sweeter the further that you go in with this one. But that is very, very nice, I have to say. So on the, I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the middle third of the palate. Let's go on to the back third of the palate. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a more, you do get a wee bit of a kind of more bready build up in there and a little bit of bread crust, which I think is quite nice. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate has a little bit of a kind of, it does have a wee bit of a more kind of grainy bread crusty character. You can feel it's a little bit dry, but remember, more bitter and dry flavours come out on further back on the palate. So that's worth taking note of here. But then sitting on top of that, you've got a little bit of a kind of thicker, you can feel like the fluffy white bread again. And that's, that feels a little bit more grainy again. On top of that, you've got more of a kind of wheaty, bitey layer as well, which I do like. And then on top of that, you can feel some of the yeasty notes coming out of this beer. So the yeasty character to the beer feels like a little bit more of a kind of dense bready character. It's also got a little bit of a more kind of grainy biscuity sort of thing too. Maybe a wee hint of a kind of woody crackery type vibe to it. But definitely on the back third of the palate, you can feel that the flavour is taller. And then as you come forward into the middle third of the palate, it squashes down together a wee bit, and those flavours are a little bit more condensed. But yeah, on the back corners of the palate then, I think we've said everything then about the kind of malty, yeasty side of things. We'll focus on the hoppy part of the beer. But yeah, back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of earthiness in there, but not too prominent. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal, but then as you push towards the kind of front corners of the palate, it shows you a little bit more of a, it shows you a little bit more of a kind of brighter floral aromatic sort of thing. So yeah, that does work quite well, come to think of it. yeah. Yeah, on the hoppy side, the kind of floral aromatic side of things, it does build a wee bit of a, it does have a little bit of depth to it and a bit of spiciness, but round the front curve of the palate, it's got a little bit of a lighter kind of, it has got a little bit of a lighter sort of grassy vibe to it, and the grassiness does show you a wee bit of citrusiness actually, which is kind of interesting, a wee bit of zesty character. So I do like that. But yeah, green component for me, it's a little bit more floral, and that's the difference between the flavour and the aroma. It is a little bit more floral leaning than it is in the aroma actually. Yeah, that's interesting, but let's focus on the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of bready build up there. Again, just a wee bit of a grainy bread crusty sort of thing. Then the base of that front third of your palate is a more kind of brown, it is a little bit of a kind of smooth white bready kind of character there, and on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer, and it gets a little bit more oily for sure. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice. The fruity side of things is quite interesting, and it is, to be honest, it is a little bit different from what I picked out in the aroma. So if you go toward the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee touch of passion fruit, but not as prominent in the aroma again. Underneath all that, you do have this little bit of a kind of dried apricot-y kind of thing. Maybe, yeah, you do get that kind of dried apricot-y sort of thing. On top of it, there is a little bit of a more oily, slightly juicy mango, and then as you push further forward to the front half of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of a kind of orangey sort of thing out of this one. As you reach the very front tip of the tongue, I think it could be a little bit more kind of oily and limey. But yeah, I do wonder, maybe Motueka and Idaho 7. I'm not sure about Galaxy in this one, but you know, it could be something else entirely. But yeah, wee bit of passion fruit, dry apricot underneath, a little bit of a more kind of mango-y type quality, a juicier mango-y type quality as well. Maybe a wee bit of pineapple the further into the aftertaste you go, but then yeah, a mix of a kind of oily orange. But a mix of an oily orange and yeah, a little bit of oily orange and a wee bit of a limey character in there as well. But yeah, overall, I think this is quite a nice, interesting beer. So it gets a thumbs up for me on the fruity side of things. I like that slightly more oily side. Pardon me, that it shows. So yeah, interesting. But yeah, let's round off the flavour there and have a look at the mouthfeel. So yeah. Yeah. So mouthfeel wise, I would say that this one is definitely more kind of yeah, it's definitely a little bit more of a kind of, it's definitely got a little bit more of that kind of oily character. I'd say it's mid-bodied, but pushing towards the top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth, but it does have a nice kind of lovely oily character to it as well. So that gets a thumbs up from me. On the malty side of things, it's got a lovely little bit of smoothness to it. The malty backbone is very smooth. There's a wee bit of sweetness in there as well, as we've said, but the malt base for me is very well balanced. The green component, as we said, was more kind of floral and things. It's not a heavily bitter beer, this one. I mean, what would we say in terms of IBU? Yeah, in terms of IBU, it's a little bit more along the lines. It is more along the lines of a New England IPA. This, I think, this is a standard 25-30 IBU beer, but that works. On the fruity side of things, yeah, it's quite oily in its fruity character. Good bit of tropical note in there, but yeah, wee bit of a kind of more citrusy orange and limey character, as we said. But overall, as I've repeated a few times, a very nice IPA, this one. It really does fit that category of American IPA, I would say. It doesn't lean too much towards the New England, nor does it lean too much towards the West Coast. It's somewhere in the middle. So I think we have to call this one an American double IPA. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this one was the Hoppy Macaque, an 8.5% double IPA from Svartbergets Fjällbryggeri in Åre in Jämtland, here in Sweden, in collaboration with Monkey Brew from Trondheim, just about down the road over in Norway. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Svartbergets and from Monkey Brew, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the near future. Do keep your brewery recommendations coming in, especially the Norwegian ones. I would love to hear those. But yeah, thanks for watching, and check out my social media and check out the brewery social media. Slange, skål, cheers, and see you guys in the next review.